Hi, Amber.
Hey, Jen. This sounds so... Our intro into these needs work, okay? Or I need work. My bad. Okay. Hi.
Hi.
It's still bad.
I am very excited to talk about this book.
I love this book. Maybe we should talk about it first.
Okay.
So this is The Sweetest Oblivion. It's by Danielle Laurie. It's book one in the Maid series. It is a dark, slow burn mafia romance that will mess with your heart in like the best possible way, right? So it's like I just need you to get ready for this gritty world of violence, loyalty, and a love story that's anything but simple. The story follows Nikolai, who's portrayed as this cold, calculated mafia head, and Elena, how do you pronounce it?
Isn't it Nicholas?
It's Nikolai, right? Nicholas. That was
I had
Nikolai,
Nicholas,
and then
but I
it's
don't.
like I have Nikolai, and then I have his nicknames were Ace and Nico.
Nico. Yeah, I thought it was Nicholas, but you go right ahead.
And so this woman, Elena, she was basically shamed by her family a few months prior. And we're not going to, that is a huge part of the story is like why she was shamed. And she's now deemed unfit to wed. But when Nico and Elena meet, like sparks fly. You can't tell on his end, but on her end, sparks fly. And there's just a lot of tension, there's betrayal, there's this undeniable chemistry. This one will leave you breathless. I will also say that this is an 18 and older book. There's some triggers in here. Obviously, it's a dark mafia romance, so you need to make sure, there's going to be unaliving people, there's going to be violence right off the bat. There's going to be I feel like there's kidnapping, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and
Torture.
torture. Yeah, all those things.
It's your typical mafia book.
Yeah,
So
it's
if
a
if you haven't read a mafia book and you that these things would be disturbing, we don't want you to read it. We
exactly.
we don't want you to read it.
Welcome to Morally Gray Babes. We're your hosts, Jen and Amber, two unapologetic book addicts, diving deep into the steamiest reads, hottest book boyfriends, and those spicy moments that make you blush.
Amber here, and we're not just here to talk plot twists and character arcs. We're breaking down everything from our favorite quotes to the spice levels that really bring the heat.
Expect a lot of laughs, a little cussing, and some seriously hot takes. Whether we're gushing over fictional men or dishing out the truth on what books deserve the hype, nothing is off limits.
So buckle up, Buttercup, and get ready for real, raw, and totally unfiltered book talk. Because we're the book besties you didn't know you needed.
So this is an enemies to lover, dark mafia romance, forbidden romance, slow burn. There's this alpha male with touch her and unalive people vibes. And there's some dirty talk and protective jealousy streak. I would say that's our book boyfriend, because I like to talk about book boyfriends, is Nikolai.
Mm.
He is known to be cold, calculated, and intense. He keeps his emotions locked up tight, but once you get under his skin, you'll see how deep his loyalty and desires run. He's dominating and commanding. He's used to having control over his family, over situations, especially over his women. He's loyal to a fault. So for him, the mafia family always comes first, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to protect them. And later, Elena, right? So, and one of those things is he agrees to be in this arranged marriage, but it's actually to Elena's younger sister. And he's also emotionally complex. So, beneath that icy exterior
Mm.
lies a man who's haunted by his past and what he's had to do to survive. And I think what I love most about Nikolai is how his intelligence was written, because this character can sit there and have just chaos all around him, and he's like playing 4D chess while everybody else is playing Connect 4. And I
Yes.
loved that about him. And you couldn't really see it, but then you could kind of get the hint of what was happening. And he does act out. Okay, well, let's just keep talking. Let's just talk about the book.
I'll I'll talk about what I liked about the book. If
Okay.
that's okay. Unless you want to do I don't think there was a dedication, was there?
There was one, but it was like, it was
yeah.
for AJ, my only inspiration for falling in love, which
That's great.
sweet.
That's awesome. We love that.
We love
However, we like dirty dedications. We like the dedications that are talking about obsession or talking about who should be reading them or what have you. But I will say one thing that was really good, even though I was like, nice dedication, was that every single chapter had a different quote from a real person in life. And and they were picked, right? You talked about this, how they were picked really well.
Yeah, so those were the things I loved was the playlist that was provided. And then the beginning of each chapter was a quote that supported the theme or the vibe of the upcoming chapter.
Yes.
And
so what I liked, I loved the obsession, as you know, was what we like, of Nico or Ace, however you want to call him. And he's a morally black character who is committed to being a Don and doing everything that he needs to do that, so that getting married is one of those things. And he hasn't really had a relationship, but is really sort of resigned to marrying to strengthen his position as well as the organization. And besides all of that, the writing is really helped me to submerse myself into the story and the characters and feel very passionate about them. I loved the POVs changing back and forth. I loved that.
Yes.
Nico's indifference to turning into obsession is really my favorite, like, over the book. From not caring if he gets married, not caring who it is, not caring if he even likes them, to completely being obsessed with her. Like, the whole sort of journey I loved.
And I didn't get that. I didn't get that he was indifferent. I got immediate obsession.
Oh, no. I got the obsession for her, but he was getting married and completely resigned to be married to her sister.
See,
and
I still think he was playing the long game to try to figure out how he could get out of it.
Ultimately he did, but there was one part in the book that made me, and I don't remember specifically what it said, but it was something to the effect of, this is what I have to do to strengthen my alliance, and I can't go back on a contract to marry. So it is what it is.
So in my mind, when I read that, and I remember reading it, it's like, oh, I can't go back on a contract. In my mind, I was like, he's going to figure out a way out of this. Like, he's already planning how the dad, who basically...
That's the chess game that you were talking about.
Like
all the different moves.
Because like the first thing that he did, right, when he goes to see the family, I loved how he handled himself at the dinner table outside.
Unaliving someone at the dinner table?
Hey, I wasn't going to say whether he did.
I know.
I loved how he handled the situation, right? And so he's immediately taken back because he does it for her.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like immediately obsessed. And I love how, yes, removing people at the dinner table, and how I feel like he just basically manipulated Elena's father throughout the whole book.
True. I would agree with that.
And yes, I also love the side characters and how you caught glimpses of who they were, and you knew more of their story would come out either in this book or in the others in the series. I thought that was super delightful. Like, you have the stepmother who's a little bit of a hoochie cooch, and you have the sister who's like in love with the gardener, which I feel like was really cliche. And then you have like the friend who's like this, everybody knows he's like a government official, right? Everybody knows he's, I guess, FBI agent. I just loved all the side characters. I wasn't overwhelmed with them. Sometimes they introduced too many people, and I thought this was well done.
Yeah, he definitely made it to the top of my boyfriend list. I will say that.
Yeah.
The sexual tension is so yummy for the majority of the book, and then they are engaged, and he's pushing his resolve to wait for the wedding night, and I won't go into more detail there. But the reader, the way that the writing works, you're rooting for her to marry him from like the first couple chapters. Like it's even though you know the sister and all the things, right? And I really felt so much sort of a part of the story. The writing really sort of immersed me into it, so it felt like I had a stake in the game.
Yeah.
The way she writes made me feel what the characters felt before she wrote about what they were feeling. Like you could feel that just from the writing, which has really never happened before in a book. So yeah, I loved it.
There were two scenes which play over in my mind. So, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because I don't want to spoil the book. But there's this pool scene and there's the restaurant scene. And in one scene, he humiliates her because his feelings are so intense that he just he just stops and humiliates her. And then the other one is he protects her over his fiance, right? So he's marrying this sister. And when something tragic happens at the restaurant, he immediately goes to her. And I was
To Elena, yes.
I was like, sweet. I will say that this is one of the books that I didn't really have any irks. I just loved this book.
So I did have one irk, but it didn't bother me. So I guess it's not really an irk, but I'm going to say it. So there were some places for this book was long. This book was a longer book. And I felt like toward the end, after 60-70% or somewhere in that range, it felt like it got real detailed, but it was needed in the story. So it didn't bother me. But there were times when it was 1 or 2 pages of like understanding background stuff, which I normally hate and I normally skip, which is not great for a lot of books. But this one I read and I loved it. So that's one thing I will say.
Fantastic. I didn't appreciate that. So maybe I didn't notice. Like I did.
Yeah.
Well, obviously I didn't
because it was so good.
I loved it. I just really like Nico. I loved everything about him. I loved how he handled her. And when I say that, I don't mean like handled in like a dominating way, but like he would for instance, he would take his fiance, which was her sister, to his penthouse in the city. And it was a place where he would hold parties. It was a place where you could tell that he didn't really live there. And then whenever he had her, Elena, he took her to this like suburb childhood home. And it was just like, oh, it was so tender. I just loved it. I was just, yes, I was rooting for her and him the whole time. And the storyline was really good.
Ooh, it was kind of a mystery, right? We want to know what happened, what she did that made her quote unquote unmarriable. And by the way, like her family nickname was Sweet Abella because of her quote unquote docile nature.
Yeah, she did everything to please everybody and she never stepped out of line. And she just had this moment where she kind of snapped and she does something to kind of ruin her image because she's just had enough. And it was very badass. I loved how she tried to make amends on her own. And I loved how she did it. The only thing is, oh, yes, okay. I just had a moment where I thought about in the book. I didn't like how whenever he confronts her about it and she's like, oh, I'll try to pay you back, right? Like she has no clue why he's actually mad at her. But that scene in the bedroom where he sits down and he's looking out of the window and he's like basically contemplating like what the fuck's going on. And she's like apologizing to him and they're finally having that open communications, right? I hate miscommunications, like one of my least favorite. And they're finally having this like story and you don't really know why she's doing certain things, right? You kind of need to know the story as well to understand. And then like she gives it and it's just like everything just snaps into place with both of them, with how you feel about what she did. It was a really good story.
It was a story that had you invested. Like, I read it in a few days, like, and it's a long book. I was invested. I was reading sections to my husband. Like, it was so good. So let's talk a little bit about quotes.
I'm like actually looking up how long this book is because you keep bringing it up and I'm like, I didn't think it was that long. Is it really?
And it wasn't long.
It's 380 pages.
Yeah, I think before that we had read ones that were like 190, 200, like shorter ones maybe, and that's probably where I'm thinking. I just remember thinking at around 70 or 80%, I love this book. It could end now and I would still be in love. I loved it better getting to the end, but like to me it was good.
It was good. It was very good. I will say this, then we can talk about the quotes.
Yeah.
Her younger sister, I loved how their dynamic. I loved how the sister was kind of like her own person. She was quirky. She was like not the norm Mafia princess, right? That we read about. And
yeah,
I loved how protective her older sister was, Elena was, to allow her sister to continue to be her own self. I liked that. So I like good sisterly love, and they had it. So let's talk about quotes.
Yes.
I have several. We probably had the same ones.
I mean, I'm sure we have a lot of the same ones. I'll start first and we'll just go back and forth. So my pulse flutters when his thumb brushes my knuckle. I was under the impression the Abellis, that's her family name, right? I was under the impression that the Abellis could afford more than a 50-cent ring. She glanced at the ring on her middle finger. It came from one of those vending machines and had purple round cut jewel in the center. The thought of it sobered me. And she said, sometimes the cheapest things are the most valuable. And that ring was the bane. Like, he was upset about it.
Well, she started wearing it when she rebelled, right? Whenever she cast shame on her family. And so he was taking it as a certain symbol. And
it was a reminder versus...
Yeah, and she had it as a symbol for something, like a penance. And so that is key. And that is my first quote that I had as well.
Oh, okay. I know we're going to have the same quotes. Go ahead.
As I pass I put Nicholas, so maybe it is Nicholas and not Nikolai.
It is Nicholas.
It
is. Only because she kept calling him Nicholas, and he did not want that.
Oh, he wanted to be called Nico.
That's correct.
My bad. As I passed Nicholas and noticed that Benito, her cousin, was preoccupied with texting next to his car, I tossed my bikini top under the hood. Don't psychopaths like souvenirs? The tiniest hint of amusement pulled on his lips, and one grease-stained hand fisted the white fabric before I left the garage. Love it.
Okay.
That was one of my
favorites. Here's a peek. I think I have it. I'm going to have to delete it. But here's a peek into the obsession, guys. I swear to God, Elena, if I find out that you've let some man touch you, I will deliver his hands to you in a box. I swallowed. And I do not fucking bluff. He slammed the door behind him.
So the reason why this is important, this quote, is because I feel like it's like the end of chapter 20. And I was texting Jen, because this was the next one I was going to read out loud too. But I remember texting you and saying, are you at chapter 21 yet? And you're like, no, I'm not there. I was like, okay, before you get to chapter 21, I need to know your feelings. And because I loved it so much. Like, yes, thank you.
It was, first of all, the fact that he felt like that, because we love obsessed guys, but that he told her that he would deliver those hands in a box. Ah, it was good.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to say my next one that I want to say before you say it again. You're taking all my good ones.
I'm sorry.
Nico, what if the 3 fates were real and I'd be destined for another? He slipped his hands into his pockets, his gaze igniting with a spark. I guess I'd have to find those fates and burn them to the ground. I bite my cheek to hold in a smile and gave my head a small shake. You're crazy. He let out a laugh, looked at the sky, and muttered almost inaudibly, crazy about something. Ah, Nico! Yes! So you just know he's obsessed with her, and she finally has that, right? Because here's the thing, it's like she's this beautiful, beautiful princess, basically, who does no wrong, and all the men want her, and all the women hate her.
Yes.
She really only has her sister who's in her own world. And so she doesn't really have anybody to really help her or to befriend her because the women hate her because men all want her and she's delicious to look at. And there's rumors that she is kind of like a floozy, right? But she's not. And so she finally has this person who craves her, but not just because of her body, but because of like
her.
Like he sees
her
past
brain and yes.
Yeah, he sees past her. Well, she doesn't act that way with him.
Yeah.
So
the sweetness.
Normally she gives like she's this sweetheart and she always says the right thing and she always looks a certain way. And with him, she just like fucking like lets herself be completely real. And I think that's why I love it is that she's 100% herself with him. And he sees her for her, not just her beauty. And I really...
like literally sees her. I love that, how you said that.
And sees how she puts on that mask for everyone.
Yeah. Here's another one. He took the bottle from my hands and twisted off the cap. Right before he gave it back, he took a drink while looking at me all the while. My stomach erupted with butterflies from sharing with him, but I ignored the ridiculous feeling. A little lightheaded, I scraped my teeth on the bottle, biting down. His gaze darkened. Was the air growing warmer? Caso, which is a cuss word. Brother-in-law, brother-in-law. She's talking to herself in her head. As my eyes fall downward, I pause. The water was running pink. He was washing blood off his hands. Good day at work? My tone was sweet and sarcastic.
Oh my gosh. Yes, please. We're unhinged if we like that. So
we kind of are, and that's okay.
That's okay. I like it in books. I don't want to do that in real life. So there's this scenario where Elena is protecting her sister, right? And they are in front of all the men in their family, right? The cousins, the brother, the dad, and Nico and his like right hand. And so, but she's protecting her sister because her sister says something that was a little upsetting. We're not going to say what it is because it's a spoiler. So she is like telling them, don't say anything. They won't listen to you. Like she's standing up for her sister in front of these men. And so that's the scenario. And one of her cousins is about to hit her. So planting the scene. Oh, there you go. My pulse leapt into my throat as the back of Manuel's hand came toward my face. I flinched, expecting the blow. When only a brush of air touched my cheek, I opened my eyes to see Nicholas's hand wrapped around my uncle's wrist. Hit a woman in front of me, and you won't be alive to do it again, Nico growled. What's up?
He's a growler, girls. He's a growler.
So I love it how, like, she just flipped from Nicholas to Nico in the whole thing, but I loved how protective of her. And so this is when he's still engaged to the sister, right? And he's protecting her in front of everyone. I just love, it's just so good.
I know, and I have so many. I'm trying to sort through them all.
I say one more and then, because otherwise we'll be here all day.
I know, I'm just trying to pick the one. That's the problem.
The other thing I would say about this book is at the end, because obviously, you know, it's the story about Nico and Elena, even though he's engaged to the sister, you know, that's the couple, right? That's not a spoiler. So at the end, he gives her a gift. And when he gives her the gift, it was just, I had to reread it because I was like, that's such a huge thing to give someone. And it was out of nowhere, but it makes sense. And it was just so, I don't know, it was like the epitome of someone listening to you and understanding you.
And just seeing you.
Yeah, it was so, the gift. I also thought the end, I guess, could have been like an epilogue because it was so short. And I felt like it just, like
Yes.
3 pages and bam. And
I kind of wanted more. I
Yeah.
did. But I know that it's a part of a series too. And so I'm assuming that they might touch on some things in the next book. I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to give you 2. 1.
I have one.
Wow.
And you do one, I'll do one, and then we're done. I'll do mine first.
Okay.
I'd always imagined love as a concept, a genuine smile, a couple holding hands, a life partner. Now I knew it was more dimensional, a maddening, a possessive, and overwhelming presence that bloomed in your chest, with the power to make you feel so alive or shatter you to pieces.
Oh, that's good. I didn't have that one. I'm going to do 2 very short ones.
Well, then
because
I'll do one more.
Yeah, because it kind of tells how she's feeling like he felt now, right? I suddenly knew I would lie, cheat, and steal for this man. I would burn the world for him. He was king of the Costa Nostra, and he was all mine. I like that. And then for the first time in my life, I felt free to be me, to curse if I wanted to keep my smile for those who deserved them, to be bad at something, to fall in love. Nico didn't treat me like glass. He shattered the reflection of an empty life staring back at me. He taught me how to soar.
So the quote that I was going to give actually ties into that. So in the very first chapter, she says this quote, I hated when someone told me to smile, as if a smile of mine belonged to them and not me. And then at the end, she says the quote that you just gave. And it was just like, it tied it so perfectly.
It literally made the book.
So, yes, saying that, let's move on. What was the spice level for you?
I'm second guessing myself now because I feel like it was.
No, don't say.
Okay, so I thought it was a 2, but it could be because of the books I read before.
So I said the spice was a 2, and honestly, I couldn't remember a lot of the spice scenes. I could just remember the tension, the banter, the emotions, the longing. So I was like, maybe it's even a 1 because
they had some good sex scenes.
I only remember 1 sex scene
in his bedroom, right?
Yeah, the bedroom whenever he tells the story.
You're right. It's a 2, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean, just because he's so
delicious.
It's the sexual tension. If you're including in sexual tension, it was a 3. But I think of spice as actual sex scenes, right?
Dude.
And so it was a 2.
I'd say it's a 2 with the sexual tension. I would say it was a 1 if we're not causing tension and banter.
Okay.
Okay. I would say solid 2. But
overall rating?
Yeah. So this book is everything you want in a mafia romance, right? Gritty, intense, full of longing, deliciously dangerous. Like there's unaliving at the family dinner table right off the bat. If you're ready for a love story that leaves you on the edge of your seat with every page, Nicholas and Elena are there to deliver. So you're having me second guess myself because I was like, this is a solid 4. I loved it. And you're like, it's a
5. It is a 5 because I keep thinking about this book. I have referred this book already to people. I read it out loud to my husband. It's a 5. It is a 5. I would definitely read it again in the future. Like it's a 5.
And for me, it's a 4. It's a 4 because I didn't think about this book until I knew we were going to be talking about this book. And then when we were talking about it, I immediately remembered all these scenes, but it's not something that I think about daily.
Yeah.
So if someone's like, I need a good mafia obsessed book where the female main character has a lot of growth, give you this one. Perfect. Like if you need a lot of spice, probably wouldn't recommend it, right? But
no. Yeah. And I love spice in books, but I wasn't.
This didn't need it.
It could have been a little bit more, but the story carried it.
I don't know.
It was so good.
Nico doesn't need that. He doesn't need to give spice. Like he's.
And for book boyfriend, I'll rate it a 5.
Oh, he's a 5. He
Yeah.
is. He's almost elbowing Callum Murphy. He's
like just under Callum Murphy.
Callum's my guy.
Yeah.
So that's how I rate people in book boyfriends, is where they stand compared to that guy, which is weird because it's not even a well-known book. It's just it's the book that we read, and
it's a good book. That's all.
But I loved Nico too. I loved how intelligent he was.
He's very strategic.
Yeah, I love that, and I love the side characters like Gianna and Sebastian. I loved his role. I loved seeing Christian.
The sister. I would love to read about the sister.
I would love to read about the sister. I would love to read about Sebastian, actually. And yeah, I love the side character. I wasn't a fan of the mom or the dad in the book, mainly because the mom never really had a presence, right? It was always about the dad.
Yeah.
And he was a tool. But
yeah.
And the cousins, like Benito, and I forgot the other cousin's name.
Oh, yes.
Like they were just so, I like the side characters. I love the book. I love Nico. Elena, I feel like I loved her heart.
Thanks for tuning in, babes. If you loved hanging out with us today, don't forget to check the show notes for all the juicy details and links.
You can also discover your next book boyfriend with our epic quiz, which is linked in our show notes. And of course, follow us for more spicy reads, hot takes, and unfiltered fun. Until next time, stay morally great.